Is he coming? Who? Anyone else?
It doesn't look like it.
Okay.
Nope.
Oh, shall we wait? Just in time.
Sorry.
Sorry, you can't say.
Sorry, guys.
Christina, what'd you shoot at Inverness? Be honest.
I don't know.
130,
No,
140?
sure. Thanks for watching, though.
You had a good swing. I was impressed. I shot a 101 the last time I played there.
At Inverness?
And that's cheap.
When was that? I mean, was that
A couple
before?
years ago.
Okay, before they
Yeah.
lengthened it and
Yeah.
redid it.
We were on.
I know why they're doing it, and I know that we have a 50-50 chance of getting a U.S. Open actually, but I miss the trees. You know, I just think it looks.
It's more wide open.
Yeah, it just everything about it feels different. So okay. Is everyone all set? All right, well, thank you everyone for being here. I know we sent out a news release on Monday talking about what I believe it will be the fourth example of this sort of partnership with federal law enforcement that's going to take place in our city this weekend. We sort of teased it in a news release Monday, but we wanted to take some time before the weekend. I don't think there's anything uniquely relevant to why we chose Wednesday, but before the weekend got here, we wanted to have a session with the media and the public to explain exactly what Operation Clean Sweep is, what it does, what it's achieved in the past, and what we can do going forward. So last year, there were two operations that I would say, if not identical, certainly very similar to what we're going to see this weekend. Now, last year was called Operation Red Zone. It's called something different now. It's called Operation Clean Sweep, but it's essentially the same partnership with the ATF and other federal law enforcement. This now is the second example this year of an Operation Clean Sweep coming to Toledo. So we've had 4 of these over the last 2 years. Essentially, it is another tool in the toolbox that we have to put the full weight of the city of Toledo's resources to attack the problem of gun violence that too many cities in our country have seen this year. In particular, this operation focuses on illegal guns. Obviously, with a problem like we're seeing in this country, it's very complex. Any complex problem, can't be solved with, simple talking points or, 3-point plans. You're talking about, it's a very complex issue. And there are a number of factors that go into it. One of the factors, though, certainly, is the proliferation, not just of guns in our country, but in particular illegal guns. We now live in a country where there are more guns in the United States of America than there are human beings who live in the United States of America. There are more guns than people in this country. And I think it goes without saying there's no other country in the world where that is the case. There is a political or ideological debate, usually in Washington, about guns and the Second Amendment and how the right to keep and bear arms can exist in a country that enjoys freedom as we do. And that is a debate that will continue. And that is a debate that actually has nothing to do with what we're talking about here today, because while people of good faith can debate the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms, what we're talking about here are illegal guns, guns that everyone on all sides of the political spectrum agree should not be in the hands of certain individuals. So that I really want to emphasize that at the beginning. This is not it has nothing to do with the political debate that divides our country too often. This is an area where there is 100% consensus that there are certain guns that should not be in the hands of certain individuals. They are illegal. It is illegal for these citizens to have these guns. These are illegal guns. Everyone, whether you are a member of Moms Demand Action or a member of the NRA, everyone can agree that these type of guns do not belong on the streets of Toledo or in any community in this country. And that is what this operation is focused on. In particular, in specific, our federal partners will work to make sure that any crime committed with one of these illegal guns that individual is charged with certain federal crimes, which come with it more stronger and tougher penalties, tougher sentencing guidelines. And to put it bluntly, you do not want to commit a crime with an illegal gun this weekend, or the full weight of not just the city's judicial system, but of the federal judicial system will be thrown at you in a way that will cause you to lose not just your gun, but your freedom for a long time. So we've talked all along about using all the resources at our disposal to make an impact on what's happening in our country. And there are a number of strategies that we are pursuing all at the same time, and I think everyone here knows what they are, whether it's the Mayor's initiative to reduce gun violence, the violence interrupters that are, actually we had interviews just today for violence interrupters, whether it's the longer term investments we're making in neighborhoods, whether it's even something as seemingly disconnected, but I think very relevant as our pledge to have every light in this city, all 28,000 of them, switched out to LED lights by the end of this year, which will make our neighborhoods brighter and safer. There are a number of things that we need to do, but among them is to work with our federal partners to make sure that we're sending as strong a message as possible, and we are imposing as strong a sentence as possible on those who commit a crime with an illegal gun. That's just kind of an overview from my perspective. I would like to turn it over to the chief for him to maybe explain just a little more about logistically how it works, and then we'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you. The way this works is there will be a special agent from the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives Bureau actually in our detective bureau during the affected hours. And anytime a Toledo Police crew, whether it be a gang task force or a street officer or detectives, arrest someone who is in possession of a gun, if that person is legally not allowed to carry a gun, we reach out to that ATF agent and we screen it through him or her. And if certain criteria are met, that charges will be levied at the federal rather than the state. Now, I want everybody to understand, there's not going to be FBI and ATF agents running around the streets of Toledo during this. This is all Toledo Police. Every time we confiscate a gun during these times, we will be screening those through the ATF. Just as a side note, just because we do this, we're going to be doing this weekend, does not mean that we're not doing it the other 364 days out of the year. Every Friday, investigators from TPD sit down with our federal prosecutors and review every single gun case that comes in to see where we get more bang for the buck, if you will, when it comes to sentencing and charging. And the mayor's right, there is a much more severe sentencing at the federal level than there is at the state. So just because we may be doing this on certain days this weekend doesn't mean we're not always reviewing these with our federal partners. And I'm a huge proponent of task force collaborations. You know, they're force multipliers, and we are members, I want to say off the top of my head, of 13 task force throughout Northwest Ohio. So we're out there, we're working with our federal, local, and state partners, making sure we keep our residents and visitors safe. If there's any questions.
How successful have these been in the past? Is it ever enough to make a difference? And if you have any numbers, can you share?
I knew someone was going to ask me for numbers. We have made arrests in the past. I don't have those, but I'll make them available to you. And yes, any time that we can make arrests and take illegal guns off the streets of Toledo, it's a positive step. there are a lot of guns out there. I'm not gonna even say that, but anything that we can do to get even one gun off the street is a positive step in my opinion.
I will say this, and if there's data to provide on crime more generally or arrests more generally, we should provide it. But I know for certain the 3 previous times we have done this, I know that those weekends there were no homicides in Toledo. Now that's not a prediction of this weekend. You know, a large urban community like Toledo, you know, will always have challenges it needs to address. But I can certainly say that the 3 previous times we did this, there were no homicides. Now, is there a linkage there? Was it a coincidence? That's, you know, that would be for someone else to say. But I know in particular, we did one Labor Day weekend. It might have even been the first one we did, but it was Labor Day weekend of last year. And Labor Day is typically one of those weekends across the country where we see crime numbers and particularly crimes involving guns go up. And I think due in large part to, at that time it was called Operation Red Zone, but essentially Operation Clean Sweep. We had a very peaceful Labor Day weekend last year, which was, you know, sort of pushing back against what is unfortunately typically the case for that weekend. So don't know about arrests in general, but I know from the perspective of the most heartbreaking examples of violence that we sometimes see, that these operations have coincided with weekends that did not feature that type of violence. But it's, again, not a prediction of the future. You never can. What we're trying to do is put every resource at our disposal, bring all of it to bear on this problem.
Chief, when we talk about moving forward with how this will actually play out, you mentioned that you're going to have an ATF agent that's in the building here working with detectives. What's the tactic with officers? Are they going to be seeking out particular instances of finding these guns, or how's that going to work?
A little bit of both. We have our field operations units who are always confiscating firearms from individuals. We get them in traffic stops, and we have units that look for our prolific offenders. It's a very, very small percentage of people who are doing the violence in the city, and we have prolific offenders who we know have been arrested with guns in the past. They're weapons, they're precluded legally. They have weapons while under disability, meaning they're not allowed to have a weapon. And that's our job, is to go after the offenders who we know disregard the criminal laws. And I don't have the number right in front of me, but we're over 900 guns confiscated off the streets this year. And it's only July 28th. So I think at the same time last year we were in the 700s. So that tells you the influx of guns that are on our streets. So it's a little combination of several different methods.
When you talk about those repeat offenders, that tends to be something that we see time and time again. Many of these crimes are from someone that was arrested, booked, arraigned, let go. Arrested, booked, arraigned, let go. So where do the federal charges come into play here?
Though that's a factor in it. Luckily for us, our courts are opening up now that COVID is hopefully going away, and judges will get these prolific offenders who have several outstanding felonies, weapons-related felonies, will get them in front of a jury of their peers, and hopefully get them locked up to keep our residents safe.
But that is something that you see, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, I'll say it if the chief may be being delicate. Yes, we do see that. I believe, in fact, I'm certain we saw that with the recent shooting at Savage Park, actually. Maybe that is a unique, I'm not saying that is pervasive, and I'm not saying that, well, I know that for the recent event at Savage Park, the process you talked about is the process that unfolded. I'd like to say maybe one other thing also. The chief, I keep in frequent contact with the chief, obviously, and earlier this week he sent it through our safety director who's here with us, statistics, crime statistics, going back to the early 1990s, basically 30 years of crime statistics on a number of categories. Violent crimes, not just homicides, but assaults, burglaries, arson, etc. You're never going to solve a problem if you don't understand what it is. The fact of the matter is that in Toledo, Ohio, right now today, across the board, crime is down. Now, I understand how your viewers are going to react when they hear that, because it seems incongruous, it seems wrong. Crime is down. You go back to the 1990s, violent crime is down. Violent crime in the city of Toledo, Ohio today is 2.5 times lower than it was in the mid-90s. Crime is down, violent crime is down. What is happening in Toledo is that there is one particular category of violent crime, gun-related homicides, that is very targeted and heartbreaking, that is affecting people in our community. It is not exclusively, but it is almost all gang-related. It doesn't make the problem any easier to deal with or tougher to deal with, but it is the fact that what we're seeing in Toledo is a gang problem. Now, it's gangs using guns, make no mistake, but by and large, the tragedies that we have seen this year are almost all gang-related, and so it should help us focus our efforts on what the real problem is. An average citizen, a citizen who is not in a gang, has almost no mathematical chance of being a victim of the sort of crime that breaks all of our hearts when it happens. Now, is that saying it could never happen? Of course not. Is that saying that it's not going to happen tonight? Of course not. But if you can simply pause and take a breath and think about this rationally, if you are not in a gang, you have virtually no chance, statistically, what has happened this year, you have almost no chance of being on the wrong end of the sort of violent crime that we're all talking about. If you are in a gang, you are much more likely to be someone who is a victim of what we're all talking about. I think that's important for Toledoans to understand as we tell our story. Crime is down in Toledo. Violent crime is down in Toledo. I'll say it again, and I will show you the stats to back it up. There is one particular type of targeted gang-related crime that is unacceptable in any city, but we need to understand it for what it is. The overwhelming majority of Toledoans, and I don't mean tens of thousands, I mean hundreds of thousands of Toledoans, should be saddened that their city, like every city in this country, is seeing a spike in certain violence. But they should feel no fear that it is going to happen to them, unless they're in a gang. That's what's happening here.
What about all the people, Mayor or Chief, that, I mean, 4th of July, Savage Park, all those people that were at Savage Park were not in a gang. They were enjoying a basketball game and bullets were flying.
I understand, but the person, and I don't know where the investigation is, so I will speak delicately. I understand your point. The fact that a gun was fired at that event was gang-related. And there's just, at some level, we should never be afraid to tell the truth. And that's the truth. So it will focus, I mean, again, I don't know where we are in the investigation, so I should be careful, but over the weekend, Birmingham Terrace, that if you are not in a gang, you should feel that you are in a city that is safe and is doing everything it can to eliminate a very targeted problem that is uniquely targeted at gang-related activity. So I know that my position opens me up for scrutiny and criticism. It's the nature of it. But it can never be wrong to tell the truth. And the fact of the matter is, in Toledo, Ohio, there aren't bank robberies where the teller's being shot. There aren't carjackings, and this isn't Clint Eastwood driving down his horse down the middle of the road. This is gang-related activity. It's heartbreaking, it's terrible, we can't accept it, and this partnership is part of what we're doing. But the average Toledoan who plays by the rules and is simply trying to, raise his kids and go to work and pay the bills and, take the kids to soccer practice, that citizen is so mathematically unlikely to be a victim of what we're talking about that it is irresponsible to think about it any other way. And in terms of solving a problem, again, you're never going to solve a problem until you sort of talk about what it is. And that's the problem we're dealing with, and that's the problem every city in this country is dealing with. And we're going to put our time and effort and resources in attacking what the real problem is. Crime's down. Violent crime is down. Gang-related gun violence is up. So we got to focus on that, and we are.
Since the last sweep, gun-related incidents have almost doubled. So what's going to change this time to tackle these gang-related incidents? If that's what's causing it.
I don't know.
Since the last sweep in May, gun-related incidents have almost doubled.
Yeah.
So what is going to change now to prevent that from happening again and tackle the real issue?
Yeah, I will say that there is no one thing that will solve the problem, and anyone who tells you that he or she has a simple set of solutions that you can fit on the back of an envelope, that person is not being honest with you either. There's no one thing, it's everything. It is a number of different policies and strategies simultaneously attacking the problem. And again, whether it's making sure that every light in this city, street light, is lit with an LED light, which will be accomplished by December 31st of this year, or whether it's creating an entirely new department of city government that didn't exist to focus at sort of the social determinants of violence, whether it's a partnership like this, whether it is growing the size of the police force, which, again, I'll say it again, I have done. The 12 years that preceded my time as mayor, the size of our force shrunk. It is now growing. All of those things are part of the solution. But here's the other thing. This is not, this is something that isn't going to be solved overnight. And anyone who will tell you different is also not being honest. This is a complex problem that major urban areas in this country face, and we have to be serious enough and honest enough with ourselves to admit that the things we're doing today we might not see the results tomorrow or the next day. But if we're serious about it, and if we engage in 21st century approaches to a 21st century problem, we will turn the corner. And again, it's worth saying, crime is down. Our crime fighting efforts are working. Our efforts at fighting violent crime is working. There is one particular type of gun crime involving gangs that is at issue here. And so focusing our efforts is a crucial and necessary part of getting to the solution.
Chief, many of the suspects that are linked to recent cases are underage teens. So how do you handle that? Because we're dealing with underage people.
We deal with it the same way we do as adults. Obviously, juveniles are, a lot of times we've seen in the past anyway, if we encounter a group of adults and juveniles, we've seen anecdotally and real cases where the adults will give the kids a gun to hold because they get a lighter sentence. Now, this year, we've seen a lot of shooters that are very young, and it's very disturbing. We're going to be working with our juvenile partners at juvenile court, and regardless of the age, a 14-year-old can kill you as dead as a 44-year-old. It is what it is. So we're going to make sure that we're bringing those cases over, and we're meeting with the prosecutors. We're going to sit down with the judges, and I know the one thing I remember a judge in juvenile court telling me is the best predictor of future incarceration for a kid is current incarceration. So they're trying to find alternatives to incarceration, which I am a proponent of in nonviolent cases. But there's going to be a time where we have to put these young people in DYS or some other type of secure detention for the safety of our residents.
Again, Chief, as far as the gang task force goes, we just talked a lot about that. The mayor saying that this is, he feels, a very targeted gang issue when we talk about the violent crimes involving homicide here in the city of Toledo. How is the gang task force staffed right now? Is it understaffed?
About 3 or 4 detectives short of where I want to be, but I'm at the point now where we're seeing so many retirements, we're seeing so many people leaving the department, I just can't take people out of operations whenever I want to backfill. And thanks to the mayor, we're having a class of 50 starting in October, and we're recruiting for a class of 40 that's going to start in June of next year. So our goals are that we build our people up, our roles up, and then I'm able to backfill those positions. But gangs is a priority of mine. We moved some people around to make sure that we keep it as staffed as humanly possible. But right now, until we get more people through our academy and trained, we're going to be where we're at.
And I would say thank goodness we have a gang task force. I assume, as most people know, about 12 years ago, we had a mayor who proposed eliminating the gang task force. My approach has, of course, been just the opposite. Growing the size of the police force, not laying off officers, and certainly not proposing that the gang task force be eliminated. But anything else?
Can you talk about how this weekend with Operation Clean Sweep will kind of help maybe fight the issue of gangs, or are they mainly the ones with the illegal guns?
Well, I don't want to paint with a broad stroke. It's not just totally gang members of the individuals who are carrying guns, but it's going to help. Obviously, it's not going to hurt if we can build cases that are strong. Legally prosecutable at the federal level, we're going to do that, regardless if you're in a gang affiliation or not.
Are you increasing the number of Toledo police officers who are going to be out on the streets this weekend with this partnership, or is it just?
It's the same as it's the same as we have.
Okay. Thanks.
And no police officers are coming in from out of town either.
No.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I gotta
Okay.
be across the street.
Thank you, everyone.